Unfortunately for all of us desperate old Pokemon fans, the old games have just never found their way to the extremely successful and popular Nintendo Switch. It's something that plagues the nightmares of many of us, I'm sure, as well as the cost of the old games on eBay. But with the announcement of the Switch 2 and the upcoming Pokemon Day, I see opportunity for us. And I got to thinking, this could be the day that we finally get the old Pokemon games announced on this new fancy console. So today, I wanted to explore that possibility with some hard researched proof and data to support why I think we could, but also why we might be living in the worst timeline, just a despicable cesspool of a timeline. So first, guys, I'm gonna level with you. Why haven't we got Game Boy or Game Boy Advance Pokemon games on Switch Online? It's a real question modern day philosophers have been pondering for a while. And is Switch 2 an opportunity for doing that? I mean, it'd make us happy. It'd make Pokemon Company and Nintendo happy since they could price hike the Switch Online service with very little pushback. Well, I mean, it's gamers we're talking about here. There's always going to be pushback, and there's just absolutely no way that they're going to make everyone happy. But what better way to make most people happy with adding Pokemon Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games to Switch Online? I mean, they've already done the TCG game, so why not? I mean, people would eat it up. Hell, I would even try it, and I don't even currently sub to the Switch Online expansion pack or whatever they're calling it these days. Because right now, like, why? But add some Pokemon games to that shit and color me intrigued. But there is some negative, not for us, but for Nintendo. For one, they could have already done this in the past year when no new games released, and it would have given them a lot of just goodwill, but they did it. And for two, they might think this would cannibalize potential remakes in the future. It's not a great excuse in my opinion, but it could be something to consider what they might be thinking. And really, I don't see how it could cost them much extra to do so. Another thing that could be stopping is the whole gambling thing in the old games. This is another one of those unfortunate but very fun stains on these games. Now, they did release these and never looked back on the 3DS store, so the whole pesky regulation, no gambling thing never caused them to take those down before that store was closed, but it's just something to consider that might be in their heads with these games. And Nintendo and Game Freak like to keep their branding and E for everyone image for the most part, but they also just recently released a life-size Gardevoir plush for all the freaks out there, and I'm starting to question that a little bit. But let's go back to everyone's favorite 3D clamshell where they did last release these Game Boy games, and it was great news for us game freaks. And they've done this whole rodeo before, but it did get to thinking, why did they do that? Why did they release these old games and not now? Well, the 3DS was a different ecosystem, a slightly more struggling handheld compared to the DS and the Switch at times. And it was also a bad time for Nintendo as well, and now they're just kind of balling out with barely any competition in the space. I'm also not sure how well these ports actually sold, and maybe poor sales could be a reason they haven't done this on the Switch before, even if the Switch has a much larger user base and theoretically would sell more. The last thing I could find was the shitty old link on Wikipedia saying the games had sold like $1.5 million for like red, blue, yellow, and that collection of games in around 2016. They also said, "We believe that we have successfully created a chance to appeal to the nostalgia of consumers who play these titles when they first came out." And if that's one of the reasons they did it, as well as make some money, they might already feel they satiated those desires with the Switch Let's Go series and the Shining Diamond, Brilliant Pearl. No, is it Brilliant? Shining Pearl, Brilliant. I can never get those right the first time. Those games. It's also been about 9 years since they did that, so a lot has changed in the space, and if that's true, I kind of like them to go back to the way and they were thinking of things in 2016. And to be honest, I'd probably buy them if they released them on the eShop like they did in the 3DS era, and I think a lot of us probably would as well, but it'd be more of me saying, yo, give us more of this when I buy it, rather than because I actually want to play them on the Switch. And maybe this is also just proof that they know people are pirating these games already and they just say, screw it, why would we even bother giving these little shitheads anything if they're just going to pirate the games? Also, quickly back to Switch Online. Are we actually playing these games on Switch Online? This could just be a me problem, but I've had Switch Online for pretty much the entire time, and I think I've only played a handful of games, and I've only beaten like one or two. I've played a couple of Mario games, I played Earthbound, Super Metroid, but mostly I focus on like shorter games that I can pop in and out, especially during COVID, and typically I'm more likely to play games that I've bought since I spent money. So yeah, I don't know. This could just be a me problem. But this does lead to the next obvious solution. That is a whole ass collection like a Sonic or what Castlevania has done recently. Now, Nintendo has done this in the past directly, but I feel like they've kind of stopped this in more recent years with series, and they're not doing any of those like Mario collections and what they've done in the past. So I kind of get this suspicion that either, again, they don't sell quite as much as we fans think they do, or maybe Nintendo, the Nintendo entity, is not a fan, while Game Freak or Pokemon Company or whatever, the whole ownership thing of Pokemon games is kind of confusing. And like most big companies, this really reduces the agility when it comes to making decisions. So things like this that could just make it hard to get everyone on board and actually moving forward with the collection. Now I do want this, like hell, I would be so excited to have a physical cartridge collection of all the Game Boy games, the Game Boy Advance games. That would be so cool. Like, it'd be genuinely more excited about that than anything else that I'm going to say today. And I would reverse my comment about this being the worst timeline. Imagine a colorful Switch card or something for the GBA ones. That would be so cool. I'm getting excited already just thinking about it. But again, sales. If it doesn't sell, they're not going to do it. I know we all think that old Pokemon games on a new device is like infinite wealth, but even remakes never sell as well as the originals. So a collection might just seem like a waste of resources and time for them. It's also not really the most inspiring thing for people at Game Freak to like work on, so I'm sure there's a couple passionate developers that would absolutely do it, but the higher ups just might not think, and that's extreme speculation though. This does lead into one more final thought though, as mostly I've been talking about the Game Boy or the Game Boy Advance games. What about the dual screen Menace games? These are some of the best games bar none. In a collection or the inevitable release of a Nintendo Switch Online, these would be in the conversation. But last time I checked, my Switch only had one screen and I'm not about to crack it and have to create two. And yes, DS games can work on one screen. We've seen the emulators. We've gotten something like the Castlevania Dominus collection that's done that as well. But this really poses a problem. And yes, Game Freak has great developers that could figure this out, but the money's not in it, why would they do it? And it's all about the green stuff. And it definitely costs a lot of green stuff to actually do something like that, to get these games working on one screen. And I don't think these developers are as lazy as some people say. I think they are passionate and they're working really hard. It's just Pokemon companies and the higher ups just really put a lot of time constraints on them, so they're doing the best that they can. Like, I'd have a really hard time believing like the past 20 years or even just since the Switch has been created that nothing like this has ever been proposed before, and it's probably just been shot down along with our dreams and hopes of owning all these games in a more affordable manner. Although if they made a collection, I'm pretty sure it'd be like $60 and probably only have the Game Boy games. Like, trust me, this would not be as generous as we probably all think, including like every single one of the old games in there. Anyways, back to the Switch 2. There's one slightly more hopeful rumor, I guess, that I heard a while back, and that's something about this sussy C button that's on the Switch 2 being a screen projector or something, kind of like how the Wii U handled it back in the day, where your main device, the main Switch 2 device, would send a signal to the TV or the dock, and it would display it on your TV screen. Now, we have no idea at this point in time if it's true, and we will definitely not learn anything more until April. Pokemon Day is coming up a lot sooner, and they're only going to tell us like vague plans on what they're going to do with Pokemon ZA and whatnot. They're not going to give us any more information about the Switch 2. I don't believe it. Also, if Pokemon keeps releasing okay games and putting games like Platinum out the same year as a new next-gen Pokemon ZA game, is probably going to embarrass them a little bit, and Game Freak maybe even knows that, is they know how good their old games are, and if they release some of the best old games like a Pokemon Black or Pokemon White 2 originals while they're also trying to release a remake for like $60, it's gonna seem weird. Most people are gonna want to go back and just play the originals, because if a remake is handled like the Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl kind of ones, I mean, the old games are just going to be better, trust me. I also just had this dark thought. What if they did a limited time release? They did this whole collection, and that would be some heinous shit right there. Or one of those like mini consoles or something, but you know what, those are totally dead. We're never getting another one of those, trust me. So yeah, Switch 2 might be itself be a little bit of a boring thing, just upgraded Switch, but getting some new games and more power, and who's really gonna care? It's all about the games, my friends, and Pokemon, without a doubt, is one of the best system sellers in general, so they're gonna need to get a couple of these games on there no matter what in order to sell some Switch 2s. Anyways, let me know what you guys think below. I ran a poll and it seems like everyone's pretty divided on pessimism and optimism in this concept. But that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I got a couple other ones that maybe you're interested in. Hope you have a great day, and I can't wait to be proven wrong when they do this, or a laugh in everyone's face in the comments that think they are going to do this and then they don't.